Jeremy adjusted his backpack and let out a long breath as he lowered himself onto the cold concrete steps outside the downtown office building where he worked as a janitor. His break was short, his lunch even shorter, just half of a peanut butter sandwich wrapped in a napkin, the other half he'd given to his daughter Emma earlier that morning. Being a single dad wasn't easy, but he didn't complain. Every sacrifice felt worth it when Emma smiled. As he took a bite, savoring the simplicity, his eyes caught a little girl sitting alone a few steps down, her knees pulled to her chest, eyes cast toward the ground. She looked no older than 7. Her plaid skirt suggested she had wandered from the nearby school or daycare. Her backpack looked too big for her small frame, and her shoes were slightly scuffed, hinting she had walked more than she should have. Jeremy watched her cautiously. Something about the way she held herself, silent, withdrawn, reminded him of Emma on her first day at kindergarten. He swallowed his bite and gently asked, "You okay, sweetheart?" The girl glanced up, startled, then quickly nodded without speaking. Her lips were trembling, and her eyes were red-rimmed. Jeremy's heart tugged. He didn't want to scare her, so he shifted closer, slowly, and extended what was left of his sandwich. "I know it's not fancy. But peanut butter works magic on bad days." She hesitated, then took the sandwich with tiny fingers and whispered, "Thank you." It was so soft, Jeremy barely heard it. They sat together in silence, the kind that felt comfortable, not awkward. For a moment, the city noise seemed to fade, and only the quiet crunch of sandwich crusts remained. Suddenly, a strong voice pierced the air from behind. "Excuse me. That's my daughter." Jeremy turned quickly, startled. A woman stood a few feet away, dressed in a sharp navy blue suit, heels clicking against the pavement. Her sleek hair was pinned back, and her sharp eyes darted between him and the little girl. She radiated authority. Jeremy stood up, hands raised. "I didn't mean any harm." She looked upset, "I just shared my lunch." The woman looked at her daughter, then back at him. Her expression didn't soften. Jeremy didn't know it yet, but the moment was about to change all of their lives. Victoria Langford stood tall, her commanding presence instantly drawing attention, though it was already fixated on the tension between her and the man before her. Her heart had dropped when security notified her that her daughter had wandered outside the building. She had just left a boardroom full of impatient investors when she spotted Lily on the steps, eating a sandwich given to her by a stranger. But as she looked closer, the man didn't seem threatening. In fact, he looked concerned. Protective, even. "I'm sorry," he said again, voice calm and kind. "I didn't mean to overstep." She just seemed sad. Victoria's gaze shifted to her daughter, who now stood clutching the last piece of sandwich, her face more relaxed than it had been in weeks. "Lily," she said softly, kneeling, "why did you leave the daycare?" "You scared me." Lily looked down. "I didn't want to be there today," she murmured. "Everyone kept saying I'm lucky because my mom is important, but I just wanted you to eat lunch with me. Like we used to." Victoria's chest tightened. The word struck deeper than she expected. She had buried herself in work after her husband's death, convincing herself that providing financial security was the best way to heal. But in that moment, all she saw was her daughter trying to fill the silence left by her absence. Jeremy stood awkwardly to the side, unsure whether to leave or wait for a response. Victoria looked at him again, this time less as a stranger and more as a man who had shown her daughter more emotional warmth in 10 minutes than she had in the past week. "Thank you," she said finally, rising to her feet. "You didn't have to do that." Jeremy gave a sheepish shrug. "Sometimes, it just feels right." She nodded slowly, unsure how to respond. Before she turned to take Lily back inside, the girl looked up at her mom and whispered, "He reminds me of Daddy. Can we see him again?" Victoria's breath caught. She didn't answer right away. But her eyes met Jeremy's, and in them, she saw something she hadn't noticed before, kindness without agenda. For the first time in months, Victoria felt unsure of her next move. But she knew one thing, this man was not someone she'd forget. The next day, Jeremy didn't expect to see her again. But as he sat on the same cracked steps during his lunch break, sipping water and nibbling on a granola bar, a shadow fell across him. He looked up, and there she was. Victoria Langford, in a tailored grey suit, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. She offered one with a reserved smile. I figured peanut butter needed an upgrade. Jeremy chuckled, accepting it with a nod. Thanks. Didn't expect company today. She sat beside him, a little stiff at first. Lily couldn't stop talking about you. She asked if I could bring her sandwich friend a thank you drink. She glanced sideways. Though I admit, it's really from me. Jeremy sipped the coffee. Well, tell Lily she made my day. For a moment, silence stretched between them. The air was cool, the city buzz humming in the background. Then Victoria exhaled. I wasn't always this uptight, you know. Before my husband passed, I used to take Lily to the park, bake cookies, even mess up bedtime stories. Her voice faltered. But after he died, work was the only thing I knew how to control. Jeremy listened, his eyes softening. Grief's a strange thing. My wife passed from cancer when Emma was 3. I tried going back to my old restaurant job, but I was missing too many moments. So I took this janitor gig. Pays less, but I'm home every night for story time. Victoria looked at him, surprised. You gave up your career, for your daughter. He nodded. Didn't feel like a sacrifice. Felt like survival. For the first time, Victoria laughed, not her professional, polite chuckle, but a real one. You make it sound so simple. It's not, he admitted. But it's worth it. Their conversation wandered from parenting to books their kids loved, to their mutual exhaustion and the little joys that made it bearable. When Victoria stood to leave, she hesitated. We're launching a cafe in our headquarters soon. For employees. Healthy stuff, warm vibes. I might need a consultant who knows how to make real food with heart. Jeremy raised an eyebrow, surprised. Me? She smiled. If you can turn half a peanut butter sandwich into a moment of healing, you might be exactly what I need. And just like that, something shifted between them, 2 worlds beginning to align. 3 weeks later, Jeremy stood behind the polished counter of the newly opened Heart and Hearth Cafe, tucked inside the towering glass headquarters of Langford Innovations. The scent of fresh sourdough, warm soup, and cinnamon wafted through the air, drawing in curious employees who were used to vending machines and rushed lunches. Jeremy moved with ease, wearing a crisp apron over his shirt, his hands expertly plating sandwiches and pouring lattes with practiced warmth. He didn't just feed people, he made them feel seen. Across the room, Victoria watched from her office window, a rare smile on her face. She had insisted that Jeremy not just consult, but run the entire cafe. The moment he stepped into the role, it was like watching a light switch on in someone who had been dimmed for too long. The employees adored him. The food was real, heartfelt. And the energy in the building had changed. Lily and Emma sat at the corner booth most afternoons after school, doing homework and trading snacks, laughter bubbling between them like old friends. They had become inseparable, pulling their parents along with them. What started with coffee and cautious conversation between Victoria and Jeremy evolved into shared school pickups, family dinners, and slow, healing walks in the park. One evening, after closing the cafe, Jeremy found Victoria waiting by the steps, the same ones where it all began. She was holding 2 sandwiches wrapped in paper. Peanut butter, she said with a playful smirk. I made them myself. He laughed, taking one. That's bold. Hoping it lives up to mine. She sat beside him, nudging his shoulder. Let's call it a tribute. They ate quietly, the city lights glowing behind them. Then Victoria turned serious. You've brought something into Lily's life I couldn't. joy, comfort. And, something into mine, too. Jeremy looked at her gently. We just needed someone to see us. All of us. She reached for his hand. I see you now, Jeremy. And I don't want this, us, to just be a chapter. I want the whole story. As their fingers intertwined, the memory of that simple act, a sandwich shared with a sad little girl, hung in the air like magic. It hadn't just changed a moment. It had changed everything.